Maria, and today I want to talk to you about boundaries, a really important concept for all healthy relationships. So let's talk about what they are, how to put down an effective boundary, and what you've got to do to maintain it. Okay, so a boundary is an invisible line that separates you from the rest of the world. And within your boundary is that personal space where you feel safe and secure. And in healthy relationships where neither person needs to control the other, both partners have an understanding of fairness and the other's needs. They grant each other the right to have psychological space and look out for small ways to create happiness for the other person. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Abuse within a relationship can happen when appropriate boundaries are not set and kept. Status aggression is a concept from the animal pecking order of some species, using violence to establish dominance. Status aggression is the misuse of power, where the older, larger, or meanest person uses anger and rage to make others submit to his wishes because he can get away with it. Children learn abusive behaviour from parents or siblings who get their way when they are aggressive. And unfortunately, some of the children in the family learn that the angriest dog gets the bone. Now, as a woman, I have to say that I know lots of women can be aggressive, but I think that most men's aggression is scarier because they're bigger. That's not true of all couples, right? There are some really big women and little guys. I get it. I'm talking generalizations here. I've always been in a relationship with men who are, I'm only 5'4", and I've always been in a relationship with men who are quite a lot bigger than me. So when they get angry and scary, yep, that has an effect. And, you know, what is the purpose of anger? The purpose of anger is to get the other one to give in to you, to get your own way. And it works. I like that. The angriest dog gets the bone. Yeah, the angriest dog does get the bone. So boundaries are needed when one partner tries to control the other. When someone invades your personal space, physically or emotionally, and when they're discounting your needs. It's necessary in relationships where there is manipulation, bullying, or abuse, and your personal boundaries are routinely violated. So boundaries are important in all relationships. They're naturally present in healthy relationships. It's not always the other person's fault. I'm going to talk about fault because you may not have good boundaries. You may have come from a family where you didn't learn boundaries and you don't know how to put them there. You don't know how to say no. You don't know how to ask for what you want. You may expect the other person to know what you need without you telling them. Women are usually bad at that, by the way. Some men are too. I only work with women, so I exclusively talk about women in my videos. I'm not apologizing for that. Okay, so you have certain rights in a relationship. You have rights of being emotionally and physically safe. And assertiveness is always about finding the balance between aggression and submission. So women always score more highly on personality tests in agreeableness. They are born more agreeable than men, or they're socialized into being more agreeable than men. It's a bit that nature versus nurture argument. Who knows which one is more important, but we could say that they're both there. But women score more highly, so women are more agreeable when we're looking at the whole of the population. Women are more agreeable than men, so men are more used to getting their own way than women and less likely to give in. So for women, boundaries are really important, and I want to talk to you today about exactly how to do that, exactly how to put down a good boundary. So there's a couple of rules about putting down boundaries, right? Number one rule for me is it's none of your business how the other person responds or reacts. That's their shit. That is their emotional stuff. that they need to take responsibility for. If you cannot say no to someone, you might be in a relationship with a narcissist. You certainly are in a relationship with someone who is behaving badly, right? You should be able to say no to anybody, and they should accept your no, accept your boundary. So expect that when you put down a boundary, the other person is always going to give some reaction. They are going to have some response. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will respond badly, but they will have a response, okay, to your boundary. They'll particularly have a response to your boundary if you've not been someone that put down boundaries before. If you're someone that almost never says no and you start saying no, then the other person will have a response, and probably a negative response. So you have to completely disconnect from the response that the other person makes. You have to let them take care of their own feelings about it. It's not your job to fix that person. If you're putting down a boundary, it's not your job to fix their negative emotions about it. They need to take responsibility for that. So that's the first thing. The second thing about putting down a boundary is that if you're not used to putting down a boundary and you start doing it, you are going to feel uncomfortable. You are going to feel like it's weird. You are going to feel not quite right because you've been practicing something else probably the whole of your life. And whenever you change a behavior, whenever you change something you're doing, it's normal that it feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So you have to allow yourself to sit with that discomfort. Sit with those feelings of it feeling weird, feeling unfamiliar, feeling not quite right. And the more you do it and the more it becomes your new habit, then the more comfortable you'll feel with it. So it's a matter of practice. So they're the first two things. The next thing about putting down a boundary is do not put down a boundary with someone when you're angry. It's really important that you wait until you are calm and the other person is calm. So if you're having a conflict with someone and neither of you are calm, maybe you could say something to them like, we need to talk about this later. I need some time out. I'm getting emotional, or I'm being triggered. We need to talk about this later, and come back to them when you are calm. So don't put down a boundary when you're in the middle of a fight, okay? Because they're not going to take it seriously and it's going to be lost. You need to be calm when you put this boundary down. Next thing you need to do is to make sure that you do it from a neutral tone. So you need to be calm. You need to be in a neutral tone of voice when you do it. Very important when you put down a boundary that you do not defend, justify, or over-explain your boundary. Because the more you do that, the more ammunition you are giving the other person to come back at you and shoot you down. And defensiveness and justification is the energy of conflict. And so if you defend and justify yourself and over-explain it, then they're going to come back at you with something, and you're going to come back at them with something, and the whole thing gets out of hand, right? So put down the boundary without defending or justifying or over-explaining the boundaries. Very important that you use the right words when you put down the boundaries. So first of all, you're going to tell them what you don't like. And then you're going to, and possibly even how it makes you feel. And then you're going to tell them what the consequence of them not keeping your boundary is going to be. And it shouldn't be an ultimatum. It shouldn't be, if you don't stop smoking, I'm going to leave you. Okay? You need to have something different. So let me give you some examples. If you were going to set a boundary with someone who was angry all the time and you were sick of their anger, you might say to them, when you yell at me, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. In future, you may not yell at me. And if you continue, I'll have to leave the room. Or it may be, I'll have to leave the house. So you're putting down the boundary, you're telling them what it is that you don't want, and you're telling them what the consequence is going to be. Another one, to set a boundary to say no to extra commitments. Although this relationship is really important to me, I need to decline your request to help you this time because it doesn't work for me. Now, notice that on that one, there is no consequence, right? Because some boundaries are not going to have a consequence. Some boundaries are just going to need repetition. In fact, when you're talking about boundaries, most boundaries need repetition. So imagine it's like training a pet. You're training the person that you're with who is not used to you having boundaries, perhaps, in the fact that you now have boundaries. And so you just need to be like a broken record sometimes. You need to keep repeating the boundary. Let me see if we can find another one. To set a boundary with an adult child who borrows money. I like this one. I won't be lending you money anymore. I love you and you need to take responsibility for yourself. That's easy, isn't it? To back out of a commitment. I know I agreed to do this thing, but after reviewing my schedule, I now realize that I won't be able to give it my best attention. So what you want to do is sometimes you want to say, use the words like, when you slam the door every time you come into the house, it makes me feel stressed. In future, I would like you to close the door gently. When you do this, it makes me feel this, and in future, I would like this. Okay? So sometimes you're going to put a consequence at the end of it, and sometimes you're not. It depends on the boundary. It depends on how big it is. It depends on how important it is. And, particularly when you're dealing with children or young adolescents, broken record, just keep putting the boundary there. Just keep stating the boundary. Just keep stating the boundary. Use the boundary. Sometimes that's necessary with men too. Just keep putting the boundary down there. So this is a matter of practice. Have a go at it. Sometimes you might need to write the boundary down first, especially if it's something you feel kind of anxious or stressed about and it's something big in your relationship and you haven't done it before. Write down the right words to say, rehearse it a little bit to yourself in the mirror, wait for the right moment to deliver the boundary, and then don't enter into discussion about it. The more you discuss something with someone like this, the more you are opening the door for their manipulation, right? So just keep putting down the boundary. Just keep putting down the boundary. I hope that helps. I'd love to hear your comments about it. And please like, share, and subscribe this video for more just like it.